Namaste and Jai Shri Ram. Hope all of you are doing good. In a previous video, we had discussed on how Western media and academia, both on the right and the left, are extremely negative in their coverage on our country. While it could be correctly analyzed, and we could say that, look, it's a lot to do with the fact that they have outsourced their stories to a bunch of dedicated, committed, communist, left-leaning, and those who are Nehruvian by persuasion. So those journalists and academics in India who write these stories are feeding negative stories on purpose. Besides the point that they're also anti-Modi to the core. So one could always say that, look, this is bound to happen, and what else could be done about it? But I personally believe that, taking into example how other countries have reacted in this way, we could learn from them. And in this video, I would like to present some of the points over here. Hatred towards Jews and Israel is extremely strong in the entrenched left-dominated media across the world, including in the Western world. Though of course, there is a very powerful Jewish community in the US, for example, that is very vocal on all issues related to the Jewish community and support politicians and anyone else who have a pro-Israel stand. But even besides that, the first thing that comes into mind when one looks at these issues is the fact of the overactive and over vigilant Israeli embassies and consulates situated across the world. Any negative article published anywhere is immediately countered by them. A case in point would be the recent attacks by Hamas terrorists on Israel, and one could immediately see that representatives of Israel's diplomatic missions across the world gave immediate facts-based rebuttals. In this way, the people living in various countries were exposed to both sides of the story. And actually, they are not alone. Even representatives from Thailand and Malaysia's diplomatic missions are very sensitive to any kind of negative portrayal of their countries. This is a common situation that is found in many other countries' diplomatic missions. On the other hand, think about it. When was the last time that you saw any of our diplomatic missions situated abroad responding to any kind of negative story that was published about India? It is ironic that the very time that our diplomatic missions across the world were aggressively promoting tourism, it was the same time that international media was painting India as a rape capital of the world. Remember, this was the time post-Kathua when there was a lot of negative campaigning going on that India is a haven for rapists, which is absolutely crap, as all of you know. Because while India may not be a paradise for women, when one compares the situation in the Western countries by proper facts and figures, one realizes that our country is a far, far safer country for women than compared to any of those Western nations, or for that matter, most other countries in the world. But how many of our embassies and consulates actually responded to that? In fact, I had bluntly asked one of the consular staff, why is it that they did not present, why was it that they were not able to respond with clear crystal facts of what the actual facts were? And guess what was the response I got? I was told, unnecessarily controversy क्यों create करने का? It was a very shocking statement to make. The expectation that tourists would go to a country deemed dangerous by media was totally lost on this gentleman. Being silent is considered by many as an acceptance of guilt. Therefore, it is highly important that our diplomatic missions across the world work to promote and present a correct narrative of our country. Secondly, most major powers, not just the US, UK, and France, but also countries like Israel, the Saudis, UAE, and Turkey, many of these countries spend a lot of money and resources investing and donating to international media, academia, and think tanks. It would be naive on our part to think that this was just for altruistic purposes. It wouldn't be wrong to assume, on the contrary, that this was actually to build up, support, and influence opinion. We often wonder why US universities are so pro-Palestine and so pro-Muslim. Yes, of course. It is true that a lot of it has got to do with their left-leaning ideas and a growing support from growing growth of the recent wokes who have who have started to dominate US academia more than ever. That is not false. But it's also true that one has to understand how and where a lot of their finances are coming from. For example, the Arab nations fund American universities really big time. Qatar alone has contributed US dollars $5.1 billion to US academia, and they are followed closely by the Saudis, UAE, and Kuwait. Today, Turkey has become a very prosperous nation and its soft power can be seen across the world. But from the 1980s itself, the Turkish government had been funding research institute to prevent recognition of Turkey's role in the barbaric and horrific Armenian genocide. Why? Way back on 19th March 1985, the New York Times and Washington Post ran advertisements that were backed by 69 academics and signatories, plus others, in order to push the US Congress not to adopt a resolution on the Armenian genocide. Government. Other countries for wrong purposes. Obviously not. Nobody is saying that. Nevertheless, no one can deny that it is important for our nation to be proactive, like Israel is, in engaging with academia and media in the best possible means and methods that they can understand. So it's not just a question of ideology. It also depends on how it is possible to actually take the help of various sources in order to influence opinion in this way, the positive one, which is the actual correct one. The fact remains that the old Nehruvian methods are a big disaster. And it is imperative upon the Modi government to do something about this. While the first and second parts are things that our government should be doing, there is something else that the NRIs, the Desis living abroad, the people like us can and should do. Most of us are highly successful in our spheres. We can look, for example, to the Jewish communities living in the West and other countries who are extremely vocal when it comes to matters concerning Israel and Judaism. So also, we should be able to write to media houses, speak to influential members of the host community, be it politicians, academics, other distinguished members, plus the most common people, our neighbors, our friends in the host community, about the greatness of Bharat and Hindu Dharma, and dispel doubts that may be in their minds on various social subjects, be it casteism, cow worship, position of women in society, and much more. There is no doubt that the current generation amongst us is far more willing to promote and engage with the host community on these matters. That's a big welcome change. And I'm pretty sure that as time goes by, the numbers of such tribe will keep on growing. However, for this to be fully successful, there is no doubt whatsoever that it's absolutely essential for the government in the country to make changes to history syllabuses, because otherwise, if we cannot keep on saying that Muslim rulers or medieval rulers broke tens of thousands of Hindu temples in India, if NCERT books falsely show Aurangzeb as a fully balanced person, a fairly balanced person who also gave grants to temples. By the way, as all of you know, that's not really true, but that's still being taught by NCERT textbooks. If we continue having the same bunch of Marxist scholars in academia, then we would find it more difficult to answer New York Times if they claim, why are they being questioned when their source of information are the same historians who are safely entrenched in universities like JNU and DU, and so on. That's the reason why changing history syllabuses is not just a question of it baad mein dekha jayega, but it should be something that should be done immediately. Therefore, I think a lot of these things should be taken with an urgent attention. And to conclude, these are my humble suggestions, though through which I feel that our leaders should really study on ways to deal with international media, academia, and influencers. Namaste and Jai Shri Ram.